In this video, I'm going to show you 10 foods that can help lower blood sugar quickly without adding more medication. And I'm not just going to give you a list. I'll explain what each food does inside your cells, how it supports insulin sensitivity, how it calms inflammation, and how it helps your body handle glucose the way it was designed to. Hi, I'm Jared. I'm a registered nurse and health coach. I reversed my own type 2 diabetes after being told that medication was my only option. This is the same metabolic framework I now use to help others address insulin resistance at the root cause instead of just chasing numbers. If you stay to the end, I'll give you one simple rule that makes blood sugar control much easier. Quick note before we start. These foods work best as part of a consistent lifestyle. Everybody's different, and if you're diabetic or taking blood sugar-lowering medication, talk to your doctor before making any changes. Let's start with a food that most people underestimate: leafy greens, spinach, kale, arugula. These aren't just healthy, they help remove a major bottleneck in insulin resistance. And here's what most people never hear. Insulin resistance often begins at the receptor level, not because insulin disappears, but because the signal isn't working efficiently. One mineral plays a key role in that signaling process: magnesium. So when I think of low magnesium, I think of it like insulin knocking on a door and the cells are answering slowly or sometimes not at all. Leafy greens are rich in magnesium, which supports insulin signaling and helps glucose move out of the bloodstream and into cells. And there's a second layer here that most people miss. Leafy greens also contain small amounts of alpha lipoic acid, an antioxidant involved in reducing oxidative stress inside insulin-resistant cells. You might think of insulin resistance like rusted gears, and alpha lipoic acid helps reduce that oxidative rust, allowing the system to run more smoothly. They're also extremely low carb, so you can eat a lot of them without spiking your blood sugar. Now that insulin signaling is supported, the next bottleneck is inflammation. And that brings us to number 2, wild-caught fatty fish, like salmon, sardines, mackerel. Fatty fish doesn't just provide calories, it sends signals. The omega-3 fats, EPA and DHA, interact with your immune system and help reduce chronic inflammation. So why does that matter? Because chronic inflammation interferes with insulin signaling, even when there's plenty of insulin present. So reducing that inflammatory background can actually help insulin work more effectively. Some studies have even shown that regular intake of fatty fish is associated with improved insulin sensitivity and better post-meal glucose control. So when it comes to fish, you have zero carbs, high protein, and anti-inflammatory support, all working towards your health. So let's move to the command center of blood sugar control with the next food. Number 3 is eggs, one of the most misunderstood foods in nutrition. Your liver plays a massive role in blood sugar, especially fasting glucose. When the liver becomes fatty, it becomes insulin resistant and releases glucose even when your body doesn't need it. Egg yolks contain choline, a nutrient involved in moving fat out of the liver. Less liver fat often means better insulin signaling and lower fasting blood sugar. Eggs also contain leucine, an amino acid that supports muscle. More muscle means more storage space for glucose without requiring extra insulin. This is what helps eggs stabilize blood sugar all day, not just at one meal. And yes, you need to eat the yolk. That's where most of the nutrients are. Now that we got the liver, the command center improving, the next step is helping cells take up the glucose efficiently. And we'll do that with number 4, avocados. Avocados influence the same metabolic pathways targeted by some diabetes medications. They support PPAR gamma activity. It's a receptor involved in improving glucose uptake in the muscle and regulating liver glucose output. They're also rich in oleic acid, a monosaturated fat associated with reduced liver fat and improved insulin sensitivity. Another overlooked benefit is potassium. Potassium supports proper insulin release and cellular electrical balance, and both of these are important for glucose transport. So add half of an avocado to a meal, and most people notice fewer cravings, better satiety, and more stable blood sugar. Now that we got that out of the way, let's deal with oxidative stress. And we're going to do that with number 5, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. These contain sulforaphane. Sulforaphane activates NRF2, a master cellular defense switch. When NRF2 turns on, cells reduce oxidative stress, improve mitochondrial function, and become more sensitive to insulin. In some studies, sulforaphane has been shown to reduce excess glucose production by the liver, a process that's also targeted by medications like metformin. And if you want to amplify this effect, broccoli sprouts are especially potent. They contain far higher levels of sulforaphane precursors than mature broccoli does. Now let's talk about fat, because this is where people get scared for the wrong reasons. Number 6 is extra virgin olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil doesn't lower glucose directly, but it changes how your body responds to food. Its oleic acid content supports insulin signaling and reduces inflammation at the cellular level. It also slows gastric emptying, meaning carbohydrates enter the bloodstream more gradually, and that leads to flatter glucose curves and smaller spikes after meals. Studies show that meals cooked with or dressed in extra virgin olive oil produce lower post-meal glucose and insulin responses than the same meals without it. A rule of thumb is use olive oil as a foundational fat, not as a garnish. Now let's stack these effects even higher. Number 7, nuts and seeds. Walnuts are associated with higher levels of adiponectin, a hormone linked to improved insulin sensitivity and lower inflammation. And things like chia seeds work mechanically. They form a gel in the gut that slows carbohydrate absorption. Same carbs, slower entry, smaller spike. Now let's talk about protein, with number 8, which is meat. High-quality meat supports metabolic health primarily through protein and micronutrients. Protein preserves muscle, and muscle is one of your biggest glucose sinks. Grass-fed beef contains compounds like CLA and carnitine that support fat metabolism. Meat works best as part of an overall low-refined carbohydrate eating pattern. Now for number 9, cheese. Cheese is low-carb, high-fat, and protein-rich. On its own, it has minimal impact on blood sugar. When it's eaten with carbohydrates, it slows digestion and blunts glucose spikes. Good options may include things like cottage cheese, Greek-style farmer's cheeses, cheddar, Parmesan, goat cheese, or full-fat mozzarella. A rule of thumb is the harder and more aged the cheese, the lower the blood sugar impact. And finally, number 10, Greek yogurt. Full-fat, unsweetened Greek yogurt combines protein, fat, and probiotics. Your gut microbiome influences insulin sensitivity more than most people realize. When the gut is inflamed, insulin resistance often follows. Greek yogurt supports microbial balance and better glucose handling, especially when unsweetened. Now here's the rule that beats every food list, like I promised at the beginning. Fiber and fat first. Protein second, carbs last, or none at all. Do this consistently for the next 7 days, and most people will feel the difference. If you want this laid out step by step, download my free guide, 6 Steps to Reverse Diabetes Naturally. It's linked in the description below. So I'm curious, which of these foods do you already eat? Which ones are you going to add first? If you're ready for more, you don't want to miss the next video. 11 things that spike your blood sugar faster than anything else. Please avoid. I'll see you there.